Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's Matt Kallman speaking from Magnify World. As you know, over the coming weeks, we're featuring 50 of the most interesting companies and executives in the industry from around the world in the emerging technology space. I'm speaking from our Los Angeles studio with Amelia Kallman, the futurist, and she's a speaker and author coming in from London. How are you? And good evening,
I'm good,
I should say.
thank you. Yeah, it's quite cold and gray and rainy here. So I hope some of your sunshine wears off on us.
Excellent. Well, you look happy. That's the main thing.
Thanks.
So you've had an innovation background, particularly in the last sort of 5 or 8 years. Could you tell people about how you actually got into mixed reality and emerging technologies? I know you're a specialist in AI and machine learning, amongst other, things like IoT and big data, which we'll be talking about during the conversation. But tell us, How did you work your way up as like the head of innovation for your previous role and then moving into a futurist and advisory role?
Yeah, sure. So I fell into this industry by accident because I needed a job, any job. I didn't care. I come from a theatrical background and I own nightclubs. I own the first burlesque and cabaret nightclub in China. Had a big success there, got thrown out of China, ended up in this country, in the UK, and I didn't have a visa, so I couldn't work. And that's when I wrote my book, Diary of a Shanghai Showgirl. And then as soon as I got a visa, I was like, okay, I'm going to find a job. And I had a friend who was going to an innovation conference. And I said, let me go with you. I'll host your booth for you. I'll, talk to people, sell your product, whatever. Maybe I'll meet someone and maybe somebody will give me a job. So there was a booth a couple over from ours, and they had all this really cool technology. They had like touchscreen tables and virtual books and augmented reality and holograms, all this kind of stuff I'd never seen before. And I was completely amazed by it. And I just kept going over and asking questions. How does this work? How much does it cost? What's it used for? And somebody finally said to me, oh, well, that was it. I was starting to explain what had been explained to me to other people. And somebody finally said, do you work for us? And I said, no, but I should. And a week later, I was hired as a marketing assistant at a creative technology agency. And at the time, there wasn't really a role I became their global head of innovation. But this really came from me driving this curiosity I had around these new products, around what was happening. And it was just amazing timing. Sometimes in your life, things line up really well. And this was when Google Glass first came out and where Oculus Rift first got kickstarted. And so I was saying, we need to get on board with all these new technologies and at least be talking about them and showing that we're, thought leaders and thinking ahead and stuff. And so I managed to convince them to open up a innovation lounge where people could come, clients could come and get hands-on with these new technologies and start to learn about them and experience the possibilities. So I had one in London and then I had one in Dubai. And then I realized that, my background as a child actress growing up and on stage and stuff, was an asset in this industry to be able to get up and communicate. Because I think because I don't come from a technical background, I have the ability to make something that can be really intimidating and complex accessible to people. And obviously I'm really passionate about it and I love to share, all these new things that I find. So I started doing more speaking and more writing, and that was really taking off. And I ended up going freelance in 2017. And since then, I've been pretty much traveling the world, speaking a lot about, XR, so VR, AR, MR have really become one of my things that I'm known for. And then obviously there was the other, I speak on a range of emerging technologies. But I guess what I'm also kind of known for is not just speaking about the opportunities and the potential, but also the risks that we must be aware of as individuals and society and as a community of people who are promoting these technologies.
That's excellent. So, hey, tell us a little bit about what you were up to today. You said you were a judge for the AV Global Awards.
Yeah.
What were you looking at in particular on your side of the judging panel there?
Ooh. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but so the AV Awards, this has been a process. It's been AV Magazine is something I've written for and been involved with for years now. They're a great organization. They put on this international competition, I guess, where people do submissions and then they do a big gala, and it's really lots of fun. But yeah, so we've had this process, and today was the Innovation Awards. So it's the first year that they're doing the Innovation Awards, and it's so wonderful. There's so many really cool things that are happening. But yeah, I was saying earlier, it's a bit like judging like apples and oranges to some extent. Like, this is the most amazing thing that has happened in audio this year, but how do you put that up against the most amazing thing that's happened in XR this year? And and then trying to compare them. And yeah, so I think I got it down to my top two finally, but it was a really interesting discussion.
Excellent. We'll wait to see the results for that. Hey, let's jump into VR and 360 audio and how that affects the actual experience as well, which is quite important. A lot of people touch on the subject. But, let's just walk through that, because when the first headsets came out, spatial audio, was to a degree there, but some of the new headsets like the HP Reverb G2 that I know that's coming out this fall has got incredible sound. I haven't experienced yet, but I hear it's the best sound yet. What do you like about the 360 audio in VR, and what are your thoughts on how or where it can go?
Yeah, absolutely. It's come so far. So in 2015, I actually directed and produced the very first burlesque show in 360 video. And it was at the time where we were still taping together GoPro cameras and stuff, and sound was just a complete afterthought, and it was one of those things, like by the time we got it stitched together and it all kind of, the technology had already moved on. It already looked dated, which is something I think we're always kind of up against in this industry, where, people are afraid to invest in this headset because they think like, oh, the next best one's going to come out next year, and that's going to be another grand or whatever they have to invest in. And I think that's starting to level out at the moment. But how I got into audio and looking at the future of audio was I was kind of continuously let down by these audio experiences I was having when in 360, in VR, when I was having this great visual experience. And so I got an editor who I was writing for to kind of let me go out and explore this. And what I was finding is, yes, it was kind of behind the surgence of the headsets, but now it's caught up quite a bit, and it's doing some really great things. So I'm seeing a lot more of the experiences where you can walk up to an object and it gets louder as you get closer and as you back away, and things that we can do inside of an immersive space. So like one of the things, I host the XR Summit every year. And in this last year, I learned a lot about immersive XR, which I'd always, not always. I simulate it with being in a headset for the most part. And I think a lot of people do. And so being able to learn and recognize that actually you can take these technologies and apply it to an entire environment so that you're having more of an inclusive experience rather than an exclusive experience. The thing about VR, it's great, but it is exclusive to the people in your natural environment. And yes, you can be communicating with people. I think Burning Man's happening right now in the Metaverse. And you can communicate with people through there, but, when it comes to your natural environment, your dog wants to be pet, the stove is burning, like all these kind of things that you're excluded from. So which brings me into why I really am interested, particularly in mixed reality, being able to bring the digital onto the physical. And right now where we're at with augmented reality, I think is quite exciting. So this has been an evolution. And that's one thing I like to remind my clients is that it's not, we kind of have this expectation that because the technology is there, that, humans are going to evolve and adapt it and like, oh, it's out now. Let me buy that. Let me use that. Let me put it into practice. And that hasn't happened basically because people move at a different kind of pace. But we're seeing that with things like augmented reality, especially now, given the circumstances of the world, this is something that has really come into the forefront and starting to become more ingrained into our everyday lives. And this is a really good place to be because we're just going to continue to grow on this. But you have to get people used to these ideas and get people using it, and also to see the benefit of it. We can't just like make a technology and throw it out there and expect everyone to say like, oh, this is the best thing since sliced bread. They need to have some kind of an emotional experience with it. It has to make their life better. I very much, from a technology point of view, like it's here to enhance our lives as humans, and I think we can lose sight of that sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's true. Let's go back to your comments about the metaverse. And actually, for those in the audience that don't know exactly what that is and what's going on at Burning Man at the moment, why don't you just explain the concept of the metaverse and virtual environments and engagement in that new immersive, way?
Sure. Yeah. So I define the metaverse as the infinite digital white space. Like it's this landscape that is just up for the taking. It's anybody can kind of go in and start populating on it and creating these digital universes. And it's infinite. So, at the moment, it's very much like Wild West, like, nobody regulates it. There are no borders. And this is exciting. And very much to a large degree as an industry, we are governing ourselves. But there are so many possibilities for things that could happen, the doors that this opens. So for instance, like the dark web, and things that happen on the dark web, putting this into the metaverse, into a environment that people can physically enter into, access. And you think about it. So if somebody's doing something illegal inside the metaverse, acting out, heinous crimes and things, then it brings up all these kind of ethical issues. Like, do we punish someone as we would if they were physically creating these acts in the real world? Or is, and how much does having these experiences actually impact the reality that, because it's okay and they can get away with it and there's no consequences here, does that make that people are more likely to try and these acts out in real life? There's things like, gaming transfer phenomenon. So this is already something that is prevalent and is recognized by the World Health Organization as an addiction and a disease. When you spend too much time in a certain game, you can start to see and hear sounds and images from the games inside your real life. So when you're in the 360 environment, the idea that, our brain is tricked that much more into believing that it's in this actual space. So like I have friends who develop inside these virtual worlds, and at the end of the day, they take their headset off, they go home from work, and they walk out to the street and they say, my instinct is to walk into traffic, because in VR, you can walk into traffic and nothing happens, so there's this kind of like dislocation thing going on. And then there's, the extension of things like Deepfakes. And this is something that I'm very much aware of and concerned of, especially right at the moment where it's just such a pivotal place right now. And with this idea that we are already, and I really hate to say that, but we're already living in an era where, we cannot trust what we see and what we hear, because of this idea of deep fakes. So for instance, without getting too political, there was that video that came out 4 years ago of Trump, grabbing a woman. And now he's saying, oh, that's a deep fake. I didn't say that, so it becomes this like, if is there no responsibility? And like, is anything real? And who do you trust? And this actually can be very bad for society in that it's very divisive. And then people decide like, this is the source I trust, and then this is the source I trust. And it becomes more polarized all the time.
So just with the deep fakes, I mean, can you give us some background? I know in particular, it's got a lot of press in the last 12 months to 18 months, around the political side. But what about celebrities and other forms of entertainment? There's, some amazing transformations of celebrities as well, right?
Yeah.
In the entertainment sector, which, I'm just curious about what your thoughts are on the education side, and is there an angle there, on that market?
Oh, for sure. No, there's definitely a good side to this. There's Indiana Jones excluding. No, just kidding. And yeah, that's one of the things that I'm really excited about tomorrow. I'm actually in your shoes tomorrow, and I'm doing an interview with one of my speakers at the XR Summit. He's talking about the future of education and this idea that we can really kind of bring these characters alive in a way that maybe we haven't previously. I don't know if you've seen like the Dali Museum. I think it's in Florida. And they have Salvador Dali greeting people and taking selfies and stuff. And that's just like a really cool thing. And I also just finished watching the TV series The Watchmen, where they have in the museums the holograms that come to life in them. Yeah, that's
actually, you're right. That Salvador Dali museum experience is incredible. I watched some background on how you can walk up to a life-size screen and there's about 1,000 interactions that you can have a conversation with him about. Yeah. And they've used AI to basically, machine learn every reaction and every conversation. And then you can have a selfie with him, as you're saying, right? It's
exactly. Well, and it's taking that exact same concept, and when you integrate that into the metaverse, we're looking at, people. Some of my clients have created these training programs that create these generative experiences. So basically, anything that if you're reenacting what happens when a client walks in, and anything they could possibly say, in any kind of combination comes out. So when you're training people, they never have the same experience twice, which has always been something that has been lacking from our training experience in the past.
That's also true.
Incorporating things like haptics. So this has always been one of my favorite topics. And actually this might've been one of the things that like really sparked me to get into this industry, because I'm still absolutely fascinated with it. And especially
explain what that is, Amelia, to some of the viewers.
Sure. So it's virtual touch sensation. So it's when, you have it on your phone, when you get a message and it kind of vibrates, or it sends you these kind of, signals. And so it becomes this other way of communicating. So when we start to incorporate this inside virtual worlds, so we're seeing virtual, hearing virtual, feeling virtual, this again tricks that brain that much more into believing it's having a real experience. And the more I've been studying the brain over the last couple months, and obviously it's a huge topic and things, but it's so fascinating that we're at the point where we can control robots through our brains that are remote and this kind of stuff. There's all kinds of things that we can do with it, but I think I got a bit sidetracked there. What was I saying?
No, that's you were just going into the whole Deepfakes, Metaverse, haptics.
Haptics. Oh, yes. Let me get back to that. So one of my favorite companies is one that's based here in Bristol, and they're called Ultraleap. And they use ultrasound technology to send airwaves. So you're not actually physically touching anything. You're just getting the sensation. So what we found is that inside the metaverse especially, or even in experiences now, you can throw your arm around, press buttons, all this kind of stuff. We have this gesture technology, but it doesn't satisfy the brain. The brain doesn't like it because it doesn't know that it's done something. So what this technology does is it allows us to touch something in midair and get that feeling as if we've touched a button. And it makes the brain happy. So you can imagine things like ATM machines, or like those things that you touch to walk across the street. I mean, how filthy and dirty are those things? Have they ever been cleaned? Probably not. And, we're at the stage where nobody wants to touch this stuff anymore, So being able to interact and have these interactive experiences where you're just doing it in midair is, not only engaging and exciting, but it's also, a solution to the part of the health crisis that we're in.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, there's been a resurgence in the ARVR sector, in particular, from talking to a lot of industry players. A lot of the headsets are getting sold out. There's a lot of new innovation labs springing up
Yeah.
because ultimately, in my opinion, on what our research shows is that this COVID has really fast forwarded innovation by at least 3 years. I'd love to get
Yeah.
your opinion on that.
That is
About,
probably maybe one of the best things, one of the only good things to come out of this.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I would agree. And I mentioned with augmented reality earlier, now being able to use this in shops, and still have this like layer of engagement, and yet the brand is still being able to have that customer journey. This whole thing coming from an agency background, everybody wants this seamless experience and this like frictionless customer journey and stuff, and integrating the physical with the digital and e-commerce with the physical and all this kind of stuff. And with web AR, which really kind of started in 2019, allowing us to access augmented reality experiences without having to download an app. I mean, that was a big plus for things. But now, because everybody is getting more used to the augmented reality and having it on their phone and how it all works, we're starting to see this in more and more everyday kind of experiences. And one of the startups that I'm fascinated with, and I don't even know if we can still call them a startup because they just got bought by Facebook for 40 million, is called Scape. And what they do is they allow us to geotag locations with augmented reality. So instead, if you go up to a building, you can look around and maybe you see the history of the building. Maybe you see, which of your friends have been there before in the selfie that they took tagged to that location. So it's adding this entire digital layer into our lives that we haven't had before, which of course opens up whole new opportunities for commerce, for advertising and marketing, and then whole new avenues for hackers and people who wish to disrupt.
Very true. Hey, while we're talking about geolocation and things like that, let's talk about 5G and edge computing and how that can enhance a user experience and the delivery of mixed reality.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the big things that's been working against these technologies is the speed of the internet and connectivity. And I think we all kind of like rammed into this when we were all working from home. I mean, I had to get new internet. I still have like a little device, my 4G device that I have plugged in when I do these kind of things just to make sure that nothing happens, and so, I mean, 5G is a bit controversial in some ways, but and then so Edge, I just got Edge explained to me in a way that I think that makes a lot of sense. And so I'll just and anybody who's a edge computing expert who's listening to this might think I'm completely off, and if so, please let me know. But basically, it just brings the source closer to you. So there's not this kind of going to the cloud and having this like long, area that the signals and the data has to go through for it to arrive in front of you or in front of your eyes. So it brings it closer to the edge. And so there's this whole thing that's going on right now around centralized versus decentralized. So the way that the path we were kind of on when it comes to 5G and edge and stuff was like a university would have 5G. And so this would be a centralized. And so when you're on campus, you would have access to it. Or different, office buildings, these kind of things. And this becomes a privatized investment. And obviously there is an investment there. So, but now the big conversation is around, well, we're all dispersed anyways. We're all decentralized anyways. So is there a real point to go this private route, or does it actually make sense to have a more decentralized network, which to me makes more sense, except who's going to pay for it, right? So it becomes a different question entirely.
Yeah, I think it's a good breakthrough for the industry, particularly in the US market. 5G is being rolled out by all the major carriers, obviously, and throughout the UK. It's there. It just has to be connected. And let's just talk about the future of where that can take some of these experiences, like the smart glasses in particular, right? I sense that if Apple has their way, we'll see a smart glass from them in the coming, 18 months or hopefully less. But, you could, future of shopping and navigation, friends, answering phones and emails can be a new experience. A bit like the
Yeah.
Matrix, maybe.
Oh yeah, so I holoported for the first time in I want to say it was 2017, 2018, and like I was one of the first to do it, and it was amazing. But I was quite pixelated, and I have a video up. I don't know if it's on my website still, but you can see me in the background real, and then you can see the hologram me in the foreground, and there's this it's a bit off, like there's a slight latency, like I'm kicking and then a second later then my hologram kicks and I'm a bit pixelated and stuff. So hopefully these 5G and Edge will start to solve those kind of problems, and then start to think about, like, one of my favorite things the examples I like to use is, like, for instance, somebody like Ed Sheeran or Katy Perry, how many birthday parties could they go to a day, and holoport to and sing happy birthday with that person's name in? That's like 30 seconds. And I bet they could make so much money doing, filling their day with singing people happy birthday, as if they were really there. But this also brings things like the possibility of having entertainment right within our house. And then also, being us becoming part of the entertainment, so what if I can be the character in the movie? I see myself, I'm the lead in this movie, in this experience that we're having. So, I mean, it works in all kinds of exciting ways. And I think we're only just kind of starting to scratch the surface there. I will mention too, one thing that I saw that was really great. So Disguise have a product XR, it's small x, big R, and they bring augmented reality into broadcasting studios. And they've done things so, like, for like elections, they can have people around and like you can actually like see the graphs in 3D and 3D. And so you can basically have like a teeny tiny little space, but through these technologies, make it look like you're anywhere in the world. And they did a great example. I think it was on American Idol with Katy Perry, putting her into this virtual house and room and things. I'd recommend people check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's virtual production is not only for film and, for film basically, which is what The Mandalorian has been getting a lot of press about, but also, live TV. The VMA Awards here, it was mostly pre-recorded, of course, in a virtual production studio in Los Angeles. So it's changing the way I think the future of entertainment is going to be shot using a lot of these ARVR type of technologies and mixed reality technologies. Tell us more about, we've got another few minutes left, so I wanted to touch on your studies in the Gen Z and Alpha consumer markets that you talked about earlier. What have you found to be the breakthrough data around this generation?
It's really fascinating. So in a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. I had kind of thought that when I was doing this research, that I was going to find that it was older people who were more concerned about their data and where it's going. But actually, there is quite a big interest from younger people, and also in these kind of like rebel products that can help. They block where your data is going to. These kind of consumer products that kind of stop things like cookies and this and that. And I find that really interesting. And I mean, I guess part of it is around, future of social media and stuff and things like TikTok, and like really getting to the bottom of like what that is. And where my concern had been, and maybe still is to some extent, except I'm still evolving, I'm still learning in this area, is that, our brains have this kind of plasticity so that our brains can be rewired all the time. And this generation that is the TikTok generation, this idea of this attention span, it's like completely changing attention span and how we receive information. And, and then, taking it beyond those generations, the internet is not free. the internet has cost us a lot as a society. And, this expectation of these new generations that everything's for free, that everything, you shouldn't have to pay for anything. So, being able to kind of see a future where you might be taking things back from some of the big five, instead of that startup I spoke about getting bought out by Facebook, being able to make it on their own, or being able to become a competitor or something without having the monetization behind that, or the means to do that, it becomes quite challenging. And luckily I know here, well, in Europe at least, they're starting to address those kind of issues, and looking at how you might, be able to even that playing field a bit more.
Yeah, also the storage of data in Europe is quite different. You have to have localized servers and all that sort of.
I get really mad when I get on mailing lists in America. Obviously, I'm American. I'm from right outside Washington, D.C. in Virginia. But yeah, because here in the UK, if I'm on a mailing list and I don't want to, I can unsubscribe and it's over. But you don't. That GDPR thing, it's illegal to send it to me if I don't want it. But I find myself that I keep getting mailings from Americans and it's not the same rules. So it's kind of like, how do I get around this? Yeah. But I was also going to say the one thing though I will say about these new generations is that if there's something that they're curious about, they can just look it up and get that information immediately. There is not that gap besides me thinking, what about this? I don't know about that. Mom, can you take me to the library? Oh, I need to try and find the right book and sort this through and sift. Instead they have this direct relationship with it. And curiosity, when you're curious and you get information to the brain, it actually sticks better because the pathways in your brain have been open as receptors to take in this information, which I find really fascinating. So we could find that this generation is actually smarter than all the previous generations because of this access to info. But at the same time, not having to necessarily memorize things or know where you are on a map or all these kind of things, it does make you wonder if these are skills that we need to continue to teach.
Excellent. So, hey, just finishing up here, what are your final thoughts on the future and what's coming? What are you most looking forward to in the next 5 years in the mixed reality or the emerging technology space?
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to the creativity that it's going to breed. I think this is a new medium in a lot of ways, and I see it being embraced by lots of different artists, lots of different filmmakers, and then also brands. So how we monetize these different things is going to be really interesting. But I think, in general, because of COVID, because of this, we're starting to see people who maybe hadn't taken an interest in it before starting to perk up and want to join these things. So I will add, I mentioned the XR Summit, so it's in February 2021, and part of it is in the Metaverse. So this is a goal I've set myself, which I'm probably going to regret. I'll just admit it, but it's already happening. It's going to be great because it's going to be in Barcelona on the 2nd of February. Fingers crossed. Hope to see you there. But either way, it's going to be live streamed and on the internet, if not entirely. And then I'm also offering this kind of sidetrack to it where you can go into experiences in the metaverse. And you can either do it through your computer screen or through a headset. But for me, this is the 3rd year I've done it. And it's just one of those things. It's like we have to put our money where our mouth is. We have to be the leaders. All these kind of, you can't be afraid to take a risk. That's what life is. It's all a risk, and that's when it gets really exciting. So I think that's kind of like my last kind of advice to people who are interested in these technologies and fooling around with it. Give it a go and give it a shot and see what you can do with it, because we haven't defined what's possible yet. Anything is possible, and it really takes, us as unique people and as a diverse field and industry to come together to produce what's going to be the future and what's going to lead the way, not just for our brands and bosses, but future generations to come.
Fantastic, Amelia. Hey, it's been excellent talking to you today about your thoughts across a range of topics in the emerging technology space. And, congratulations. And you're a real champion, obviously, as well with your business to
Oh, thank
corporates
you.
and startups. So it was great talking to you. Can you give yourself just a shout out on LinkedIn where people can find you just to finish?
Yeah, sure. So it's my name, Amelia Kallman. I think that's where it's at. Also, check out the XR Summit. And then on Twitter, I'm Amelia Kallman. Yeah, and that's my website too. Those are all great ways to reach me. Oh, and actually, I'm sorry, I'll kick myself if I don't say it. I have a monthly independent innovation newsletter called The Big Reveal, and it's free. It's like it's just the top 10 coolest things that I'm looked at and that I'm interested in that I think everybody should know about. And if you're interested, I have it on YouTube, and it's a digital copy as well, but you can subscribe at my website.
Fantastic, Amelia. You have a great evening and great chatting today.
Thank you. Take care.